Hi everyone, Aiden here with etrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at this Durabilt ratcheting chain binder for 3/8 or 1/2 inch chains. This particular model is going to have a weight capacity of 11,300 pounds, so it's going to be extremely capable for tying down your bigger equipment like construction equipment, agricultural, or even just some really big cars if you're car hauling. Regardless of what you're tying down, a chain binder is going to be great for taking out slack on a chain. When you're tying down heavy machinery, ratchet straps just aren't going to cut it. And when you're using chains, you need a way to get them tight so that you can keep your load secure going down the road. And that's precisely what this chain binder is going to do. So let's check it out. Now, when you're looking at chain binders, you've got two paths you can go. You've got the lever style chain binders and the ratcheting style like we have here. The vast majority of what we carry here at etrailer and the most options you're going to have is going to be with the ratcheting style. Lever style, we have a few options, but really that's, in my opinion, the inferior type of chain binder. For one, it's going to be a little bit harder to dial in how tight we're getting our chain. You're going to hook your two hook ends up to the chain and throw a lever to draw those ends together. And as you're doing that, if you didn't hook in exactly the right place and you start to throw that lever, you really can't stop until it's all the way down. That can be one, extremely hard to throw to get it tight. And then you run the risk of, if you bump into something or like a rock hits that lever, it could break the tension while driving, or just whenever you're done and you're ready to unhook, you have to then take that lever, open it up to break the tension, and all that force is going to come at you right at once. That can lead to some serious injuries because it's coming at you with a lot of force. So for me, that's why I like the ratcheting style a lot better. It's going to be much easier to operate. You can really fine tune it with how tight we get it, and it's just going to be overall more user-friendly. So if that's the type you're going with, it's just going to be a better experience. Now, taking a look in the middle here, we can see how this all works. This middle section is called your pawl, and that's going to control the direction that we're ratcheting. So I can flip it just with my fingers into the tightening or loosening state. Right now it's in the loosening state, so I can push it and loosen it up. And after just a few clicks of it, you can see already how quickly the chain is loosening up. And you saw I really didn't have to put much effort into that at all. And the same goes for tightening it. You might want to hold onto the barrel when you do that. It'll just help you tighten this a bit more efficiently. Right there, I'd say it's pretty good, nice and tight, and you don't have to worry about it going down the road. So overall, much easier to operate. Now, when you're hooking this up, the two screw ends on the outside here will expand and retract. When they're fully expanded, the end from one hook to another is going to be 32.5 inches apart, and when they're fully retracted, it's going to be 24.5 inches apart. So you're going to get 8 inches of slack take up there. Not too bad. That's pretty much on par with all of Durabilt's other ones. And as we're hooking up, it's just something we want to keep in mind. I'd probably recommend having this loosened up a little bit before we hook up to our chains. So you can just have it in the loosened position and just spin the barrel a couple times to open it up a little more. I wouldn't say you need to open it up to the absolute max unless you really need to, because when we hook this up, and I'll just show you, we want to hook it up pretty much as tight as it'll go. So one end I'm going to hook right next to my chain over here because this end's a bit more fixed. And then the other end, I'm going to try to pull this as tight as I can. I'll bring the hook end up to meet it on the chain binder and hook in pretty much as tight as I can go. I'll try to keep my hands out of the way, but this can be a little tricky. I'm going to shoot for one link up right there. It's pretty good. From there, you can start to tighten it up. Flip the pawl and just turn the barrel by hand. It's going to be a lot easier and quicker. It'll be a little bit of a wrist workout, but as you go, you'll see that slack get drawn out. It'll reach a state where it becomes a little bit harder to do by hand. And if you see a good amount of screw left, you want to then just go forward and tighten it up the rest of the way with that handle. If you're tightening it up by hand, and you pretty much run out of screw length, then you probably hooked it up a little bit too loose. We still want to see a little bit of this. And then all the excess chain here, we want to take care of it so it's not dangling off the side of our trailer, potentially causing damage to other vehicles on the road. So we'll just wrap it up around the barrel a number of times. You'll reach a point with this where it can't go around the handle anymore. And once you reach that point, just drape it over itself one more time, and all this should stay in place really well. You know, this last little bit there might hang out, but that's not enough to do any damage to anything, and it would have to really unravel itself a lot, and it's just not going to do that as you're bouncing around going down the road. The other thing is we want to keep this in the tighten position, so if we do hit bumps, there's no chance of it knocking itself loose because the only direction it can go is further tightening it. Now, I know I mentioned earlier that this has a safe working load limit of 11,300 pounds. That's just what the binder is rated for, not necessarily your chain that you're using it with. And when tying things down, you want to take a look at everything you're using to tie down your equipment and go by the lowest rated component. In our case today, we're using this with a 3/8 inch chain, not a 1/2 inch. This binder will work with both those sizes, and since we're using the smaller of those two, our 3/8 inch chain is definitely the limiting factor. So you would want to abide by its safe working load limit. The other thing to consider is that you're probably not just going to be using one binder. You're probably going to at least have two, one for the front of your equipment and one for the rear. If not, maybe four, one for each corner. It's really all going to depend on the equipment you're tying down and what is the safest practice to get it secured. But when using multiple chain binders, you can combine those safe working load limits. So if you've got one in the front, one in the rear, just combine those two. Again, still abiding by the lowest rated component in your system. So if it's the 2 chains, go by the 2 chains. You're gonna get some pretty sturdy construction all throughout too. The hooks and screw ends are gonna be zinc plated. That's gonna keep them really nice and weather resistant. And for the main barrel, the ratcheting mechanism, the pawl, and the handle, you've got this red powder coat over the top. That powder coat seems to be pretty good quality. We've not really had any today that we've opened up and noticed immediate damage, but as you go through and use and abuse these, you'll probably notice bits scratching and scuffing away over time. If you want to protect the metal underneath, just keep an eye on it and maybe periodically take some paint or a paint pen and just cover up the bare metal to keep it protected from the elements for as long as possible. But when it comes down to it, if you're looking for a chain binder to take slack out of your chains when hauling heavy equipment, I think Durabilt is an excellent way to go, whether you choose this one or one of their other sizes. I've worked with so many of their chain binders at this point, not just today, but in the years past, and they just make a good product. They've worked as intended every time, and the offerings are really vast. We carry a ton of different configurations from them on our site with folding handles, removable handles, or just this standard style like this that has different weight capacities or is compatible with different chain sizes. So if this one doesn't fit your functional needs, you need something that's rated a bit heavier, or you just don't need something this big and you are looking for a smaller one, you should be able to find one that fits those needs, and you can find it here at etrailer. But overall, I think it's a really solid option, and especially with this ratcheting style, it's going to be easier to use than the typical lever style you might be familiar with. Again, my name's Aiden here at etrailer, and thank you for watching.